Hello, and thank you so much for inviting me to the Romanian National Financial Education Day. This is such an important agenda. We see shrinking public and private benefit systems. People these days need to take better care of their financial future. We also see increasing sophistication in financial products and complexity in the markets. People need to navigate a quite complex landscape. And then, the COVID crisis has complicated things further, putting so much greater individual responsibility on people. Now, when we tested 15-year-olds in financial literacy and looked at how they use financial products, you can see actually that the financial world is real for many 15-year-olds. 54% of students hold a bank account. 73% said they had bought something online. So making decisions that have financial consequences now. 39% said they'd made a payment using a mobile phone. 69% said they always or sometimes compare prices between a physical shop or an online shop. Again, this has become part of their daily life. Now, financial literacy, financial competency doesn't come as an automatic byproduct of becoming wealthier. Here you can see the relationship between the test scores on our PISA financial literacy test on the vertical side and horizontally the GDP per capita. You can see a country like Estonia, students are really literate. They can manage complex financial decisions even though the country is not among the wealthiest. And you look at the United States, the wealthiest country on this list, the financial literacy is just so. So don't expect financial literacy to evolve as your economy develops. Interestingly is also that it's not just, a matter of giving students access to financial products. You can see again, performance on the literacy test on the vertical axis and the percentage of 15 to 24-year-olds who have an account at a bank, on the horizontal axis. You can see here there's a rough relationship. So probably having, access to financial products helps. But again, there are plenty of exceptions to this pattern. So we better give young people the skills before we give them access to the financial products. So let's look at student experience with money. Again, I mentioned already the share of students who hold a bank account. And you can see that here broken down by countries. It varies actually quite a lot. You look to Estonia and Finland where this is really well established. At the same time in Peru, it's just a tiny minority. So that's the access to a bank account. What is interesting is that financial literacy performance is positively associated with students holding a bank account. Not so surprisingly, cause and effect could go either way. If you're financially literate, you realize you need a bank account, you have it. Or if you have a bank account, you practice this, you develop your financial skills. But you can basically see in most countries, there is a positive relationship. Now, interestingly, that relationship is not just a reflection of family wealth. Wealthier families educating their children better and also giving them access to a bank account. Even when you take that effect out, you net that out, and that is really what the green bars represent, you can still see that positive relationship. So that's interesting to look at. You can see here roughly 75% of students bought something online, 40% of students made a payment using a mobile phone, but again, lots of variability across countries. And less so in buying online. So that seems to be, a lot more common than just making payments. And once again, you can see that financial literacy performance is positively associated with experience in buying something online. So once again, we do not know what is cause and effect, but we can see that relationship. That, buying things online and financial literacy go together, at least in most countries for which we have data, and also, even after netting out the social background of students and their families. Unfortunately, I don't have data for Romania because Romania still did not join the PISA assessment of financial literacy, but hopefully that's going to happen in the future. Now, that is access to products. Let's have a look at students' financial behaviors. You can see here, more students compare prices in different shops, including between physical and online shops. You can see here, comparing prices in different shops. That's almost 3/4 of students. Comparing prices between a shop and an online shop, a little less so. Wait until the product gets cheaper before buying it. That also takes some, discipline, and that's also part of financial literacy. Can I weigh the present against the future? And can I, manage myself, my own expectations in light of what I expect as future prices? And then buy the product without comparing prices. That's really just, a minority, at least according to their self-report. So that's actually, I think, a quite encouraging overall picture. Now, once again, you can see financial literacy performance is positively associated with comparing prices in different shops. Where you have students who compare prices in different shops, they're doing better on the financial literacy test. Or, more likely, where students are more financially literate, they are more judicious. They compare prices better. And you can see the same effect comparing prices between a shop and an online shop. Also waiting for the product to get cheaper. And you can see that inverse relationship. Students basically who buy the product without comparing prices are usually the ones who are less financial literate. So it makes sense, but it's good to see that data actually shaping up. And once again, we can break that out by countries, but we don't have the time for doing that now. Let's have a look at, financial literacy at home and at school. What are the sources of financial literacy? Now, where is financial education most important? Here you can see that 94% of students obtain information about money matters from their parents. These are averages across OECD countries. Their parents, guardians, or other adults are the most important source for students. And then comes the internet. And that's such a double-edged sword. The internet, can provide you the right answer and the wrong answers. And there you can see how actually, literacy really, really matters. But then, number 3, teachers, friends, television or radio. So these are the sources from which students obtain that information. A majority of students can decide quite independently what to spend money on, and they are responsible for their own money matters. Now, that's also really important in a world in which students have that access to products. Now, you can see here 80% of students say I can decide independently what to spend my money on. Or, I'm responsible for my own money matters. And then a little bit less, almost 70%, I can spend small amounts of my money independently, but for large amounts, I need to ask my parents or guardians for permission. And then, just a minority, a third of students say I need to ask my parents or guardians for permission before I spend any money on my own. So, once again, students have that responsibility. They have access to financial products. So you can see why financial education really, really matters. And also, you can see, as you would expect, financial literacy is positively associated with being able to decide independently. Now, there's students that always need to ask the parents whether less financial literate. Or maybe the parents knew that they were not literate enough and therefore, required them to ask. But you can see the students who can decide independently what they spend their money on, or who are responsible for their money matters, they score best on this PISA test. Two things going together. So let me just wrap up, highlight a few points of what countries are already doing or what they are thinking about doing to improve financial literacy. I thought that might be most relevant in the context of your Financial Literacy Day. Here, first of all, it comes to sort of a building about national strategies. Now, by this I mean a nationally coordinated approach to financial education that consists of an adapted framework or program that recognizes the importance of financial education, involves the collaboration of different stakeholders. That's also very important. And it's not something you can do as teachers alone or as parents alone. It's really all of society business. You need the business sector, the banks, and so on. That also has some roadmap on how you get there, and that also provides guidance to individual programs. There's a lot of activity out there, but do you have a strategy that puts all of this together? And as of the year 2020, we had more than 70 countries that are developing or are already implementing such a national strategy. It's really important to have a kind of systematic approach to this. So, a couple of policy recommendations that you could consider. As you could see, the low-performing students are the ones most at risk, so do not have those financial skills, and often they're very much exposed to the products. They may not have, the capacities to use them, and they may suffer most from the consequences. If you have wealthy parents, maybe, they pick up the bill if you make the wrong decisions. If you have poor parents, you are on your own. So addressing the needs of low-performing students and those from disadvantage is really, really key. That's perhaps the most important lesson that we take from this. And those are the ones also, remember that parents are a very important source of financial knowledge. So where parents can't play that role, school needs to really do its job. Gender equality is also an interesting aspect. It's not just about socioeconomic gaps, but we do see clear gender differences in the experience, in the attitudes, in the behaviors. In addition to the performance difference, I didn't talk about that here, but you can see generally girls doing better than boys on most of those dimensions. It's also important to support both access to and education about safe and age-appropriate digital financial products. It's not just the literacy, can you actually navigate, manage this, but also, give students good contextual information. What products exist, what are the benefits, what are the costs, what are the risks involved. And then you saw students have experiences, money, and that experience tends to be positively related to financial literacy. So again, you can build on students' positive experience with money. And then also reinforce financial literacy at school, but also at home. Remember, parents or guardians are actually one of the most important sources for knowledge in this field. So with that, I'll leave you with some food for thought for the Romanian National Financial Education Day. As you can see, it is an important agenda and you can make a real difference. Thank you very much.